We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's the professionals, and Stuart and Mitch join us, and I think we're all a little bit worse for wear. What on earth we've got to do a show at 9 o'clock in the morning for? I don't know, it's my fault because I'm going out again. But great to be on the show, and I promise not to ask the same question 3 times. I'm not that bad this week, lads. But Mitch, Newcastle, back-to-back wins in the league against Manchester United. Clean sheets against Manchester United. First time, I think it's 3 clean sheets in the last 3 games against Manchester United. I think the stat on Sky this morning, I think they said that's the first time since 1922. I mean, there's some amazing stats, but that was men against boys yesterday. Newcastle really dominated that game from start to finish, and the scoreline flattered Man United.
Close to the most one-sided 1-0 I've seen in a long time. You know, we're probably giving them a battering. With 13 injuries, clock up to 14 during the game, with Ten Hag's making his mouth go after the game about being at a disadvantage and having to rotate. What's that? What's rotation? When you've got a full team of players injured, you know. Excuse me. I just, you know, he can twist and turn as much as he likes, but they were outplayed, turned over, and they were lucky to get away with 0.
Yeah, Stu, I mean, amazing performance that, especially when you consider what we had available and what we had on the bench.
Definitely, it was, as Mitch just said, that was probably the most comprehensive 1-0 you'll ever see. I was speaking to a client of mine who's a Man United fan this morning, and he says, if you could give minus points, we should have had that, as in them, not us. So they knew they were well spanked. And I think for Christmas, I'm going to have to ask for a thesaurus because I'm running out with superlatives for this team at the minute. You've got to think they're thriving on the siege mentality, the fact that they are on the bare bones, and the togetherness is amazing to watch. And then you start thinking, like, who do you bring in? You know, there's obviously players need the rest, but they feel like they don't want to miss out. The ones that are playing want to play every single game. And long may it continue, you know. So, yeah, you can't be anything but proud of the way they've been performing the last few games. And that's 3 of the so-called Big 6 just being handed their arse in the last few games. That's Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United.
Who was the man of the match for you, Mitch?
Ooh, difficult one. But I think everything seemed to go through Bruno. I think that was one of his most comprehensive performances for a while. I think everything positive went through him. He organised everyone, and I think his presence gives Joe Linton the ability to get back to his best, and obviously gives Miley the confidence to continue to play well. And so I think, Bruno for me.
Stu?
I think there was 11 man the matches, to be honest. Can't really disagree with saying Bruno. You can understand why that's been said, but to me, I thought Joe Linton grew up as the game went on, and he was a colossus in midfield. And I thought Shaw was outstanding again in defence. He was foot faultless. He was perfect. And you start looking at the squad, the ages of them. You know, you've got like the Mighties, Livramento, Botman, Bruno, Gordon, Isaac. These will, and you can add Hall to that. These will be in our team in 3, 4, 5 years' time. And you start adding to that, and you start to think, well, how far can we actually go? There really is no limit to what this team can achieve. So I would say Joe Linton would have been man of the match for me yesterday, but it's a tough call in the right way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, personally, thought Gordon had another blinder. Topped it off with a wonderful goal as well. But I've got to agree with a lot of people in the chat. Fabian Schär, who again is becoming more of an unsung hero. Sparky D, I don't think the comparison is unfair. He says he reminded me of Franz Beckenbauer. I mean, when you think about it, this guy was isolated by the previous manager for best part of 2 years, and he's now he's rolling back the years, Mitch. It's a John Gibson, Alan Oliver comment, but he is definitely doing that, isn't he?
Right, absolute class act. And again, another example of what Eddie Howe's done with this squad. There's not a single player hasn't improved in some way, shape, or form. And he's got the license to get the best out of them. And he swapped from right-sided centre-back into left-sided centre-back, and you can't even really notice the difference. That's the quality of the guy. And some of his passing yesterday, and his range of passing, he can ping a ball diagonally 40 yards across the pitch, but then he can do the integrate 1-2s on the edge of the box going forward. You can see why people use, phrases like Beckenbauer. But the way this team plays gives him a little bit of freedom to do a little bit of that because everybody else is prepared to put the work in to cover. So when he's out of place, somebody from midfield's dropping in to cover from where he's gone from. And I think it's fabulous. He's having a real proper renaissance, isn't he? You think about, that centre-back pairing we've got at the minute was our centre-back pairing in the Championship. Mm-hmm. And now look at them. And they don't look out of place in the Champions League now. And that's credit to the players and credit to the manager and the backroom staff for bringing the best out of them.
Yeah, I mean, Fabian Schär, he's playing well, and again, special mention for somebody you supported throughout these darker days, Lascelles, mate, another player who's shining. But Fabian Schär is definitely leading by example in his Stu.
He definitely is, and he's due a bad game, and I just hope he has it against Scotland in the Champion Euros next summer, because there's Scotland through Switzerland, so he can marshal all these Champions League players, but can he hold off Lyndon Dykes, the QPR sub, who plays up front for Scotland? That'll be his big game. So, joking aside, he's oozing with confidence, And you talk about Rolls Royce players, but he looks. I've seen Barry Hogan there saying the unflappables. He does look unflappable. He's so composed.
We've lost your volume there. Somebody must have rang you, I think. We've lost your volume, Stu. Yeah, we've lost you, Stu. I'm going to have to take... Yeah, I can't hear you. You'll have to go out and come back in, I think, mate. We can't hear you. Oh, are you back? We can only hear you, Mitch, I think. Yeah, we can only hear you. The injury to Nick Pope was probably the biggest blow of yesterday's game, and that's a bad injury, isn't it? I mean, we don't have to be doctors to be able to see that that's a bad injury, and he's popped his shoulder, and of course, it's an injury that he's had before.
And another unfortunate one as well. It's it's like somebody in the physio's room backed over a box of black cats or something recently. It's like, how unfortunate can we get with some of these injuries? If he's done that shoulder before, then it's going to be a problem going forward. And if I remember right, there's a special type of surgical procedure you need, but that'll be a longer recovery period. I think something similar to what Stephen Taylor did. I think he dislocated the same shoulder a couple of times and ended up needing surgery, and he was out for a decent length of time.
Yeah.
So I think it could be something similar there. And you could see as soon as he hit the deck, he was motionless and his hand was up. He knew as soon as he hit the deck. And if you look at some of the pictures of him coming off, there's one of them in particular, the angle of his shoulder shouldn't look like that. You know, there's a lump where there shouldn't be a lump. And I think that's the most telling bit. You just hope he's got lucky and it's a speedy recovery. But he has an opportunity, and this is why we're all joking about having 3 keepers on the bench the other day. It's a pretty good job we do, isn't it?
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
And this gives Dubravka an opportunity, and like any of the outfield players, he'll be supported by Howe to say, right, here's your chance, shows what you can do, and make me absolutely no guarantee to drop you when Pope's fit again. But also it gives me the luxury, if you can call it that, to say to Pope, right, you come back when you're ready, when you're fit. We're not rushing you back. We don't have to rush you back. Mm-hmm. You know, we've got Dubravka and Karius, who both the manager showed that he's got faith in one way, shape, form or another over the last couple of years. And, you know, one point that was made somewhere today, at least with Dubravka coming back in, it's a reacquaintance for the back four, not a new face. And so, again, it shouldn't take too long for the back four to adapt, you would hope. And also, let's see what the naysayers about Pope, because there's still some people have doubts over Pope. Let's see how you feel after 4 weeks with Dubravka in goal and see where you feel from that. But I'm quite sure, whoever he rolls with in whatever competition, because there'll be opportunities for Karius too, I would imagine. He'll have the backing of the team, backing of the manager, backing of the backroom staff, and backing of the fans in the stands, and that's all you can ask for, really.
Yeah, it was I did laugh at Geordie's Tune for Life's comment there. He goes, Stu was doing an Eric Ten Hag impression before talking to himself. But yeah, I mean, you were rudely cut off by whatever means. Do you want to finish up what you were talking about, or do you want to look at
the I just had a phone call, so it come through the phone. It was just someone from work who I have to go after this. I was just saying, watching Livramento playing, he's beyond his years for his vision and his touch, and everything he's doing is right. His speed of thought, and it's such an astute signing, and he's going to be a huge player for us for years to come. You know, the really like it. I've seen the fact that he could play for Scotland, so we'll see what happens with that. And
Nick Pope's injury.
Pope, you know, he's on anyone, especially with what we've got. But if we could ever carry an injury, it would have been in the goalkeeping department, due to the fact that we do have 2 quality keepers in reserve. But he's, to me, again, he made some, well, they didn't have that many shots, but he made one really good save.
One.
Yeah, he made one really good save and an important save as well. And it's hard for people who support Newcastle a long time to shake off. They're going to score on this. They're going to score, especially what happened on Tuesday. They're going to get one back, but they never look like conceding. And I swear it was about 30 minutes had been played before I even realised Rashford was playing, or he was on the pitch anyway. That's how good we are, and this is meant to be their superstar and England international, and he was marshalled superbly by Livramento, who obviously wanted to go forward as well. So he can defend like Dan Burn, and he can zip forward like John Beresford. He's the ideal package, isn't he? But hopefully Pope gets back as soon as possible. But thankfully we do have good goalkeepers in the reserve. And let's hope Dubravka shows that he wants that number 1 spot, which can only be good for us as a team.
Yeah, Yeah. Dean Charlton, good morning, says the ref let the game flow yesterday. Harry Maguire should have had 2 yellows easily. It's lovely to watch Newcastle again, and I think that's the difference between now and a couple of years ago. Newcastle are nice to watch. There is some good football, and Eddie Howe's gradually progressed that. We still have the high intensity. We still have the game management in our locker, but we're now starting to play some really nice football, Mitch.
Yeah, and it's funny. It mirrors a conversation that we had last night at one point, because Rob was out watching the game with me, and we introduced him to Rich Oliver and obviously Steve Hasty and a few others. And he says, I used to come and watch with these lads and wonder why were they doing it to themselves? Why would they come out and watch this, through the dog days of Bruce Ball? He said, sometimes I just couldn't understand it, that these lads would spend an afternoon in the pub just getting angry and frustrated. But now it's a totally different thing. He chose to come out to watch us last night because he thought it would be a good game. It's like... it's chalk and cheese, absolute chalk and cheese. And you can see with the way the setup we've got now in Brooklyn. I mean, even though it was for us over here, it was a midnight kickoff last night, and you got the Rugby Sevens on here in Dubai, which is a huge event. And I was under instructions from some of the lads, if I turn up in Brooklyn after the Rugby Sevens, please send me home. There was some very bad heads floating around Dubai this morning, that's for sure. And not just because of Newcastle United, but even with everything going on here and National Day holidays, we still had a good 60, 70 in the bar last night at midnight for a midnight kickoff here in Dubai. That's unheard of. In times gone, it would be 4 or 5 at 3 o'clock for a 3 o'clock Saturday kickoff. It really is a joy to come out and watch them again. Be that on the telly or be that in person, and it's a totally different feeling. And again, comes back to what's filtering down from the very top. The manager's a class act, the coaching staff are a class act. That's spilling down into the players, that's spilling down into the fans, and we've got that synergy happening again, where the players and the fans bounce off each other. And when that happens at St James's Park, that's for visiting teams, that's lethal.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we are playing some wonderful football, Stu. I think that's almost, gone unnoticed. And I think a lot of the criticism from the press, or should I say praise from the press for other teams rather than praise for the way Newcastle are playing, I think the worm's turning on that. I heard Sky Sports this morning about 8 o'clock. Newcastle and Manchester United's game was top of the hour. And they were talking about it, and they actually praised Newcastle rather than said Manchester United are going through, a bad spell or due to Manchester United not playing well. The words used by the guy who was presenting this morning said Newcastle dominated from start to finish. And I think the worm is turning on that. And I think that's a true reflection on the football that Eddie's got the lads playing.
I think it has to, Steve, because for the last 2 years, it's always been about the other team underperforming rather than Newcastle excelling.
Yeah.
And even as recently, it was a disappointing performance by Chelsea. It was a poor performance by Arsenal, who were robbed, etc., etc. It's now we're in the faces that much they can't ignore us, and long may it continue, and I'm sure it will. You can't have the press as biased as they are. They'll just make fools of themselves if they keep ignoring the fact that this Toon Army tidal wave is just growing momentum by the game.
I think the atmosphere yesterday as well. I mean, me and Dad had that whole situation, Mitch, where he was, he put the tweet out, he came back out and, put a further tweet out, around the PSG game. I think me and Dad got a reaction yesterday from the supporters, and I certainly think the Strawberry Corner were in full voice for most of that game yesterday. There was virtually no periods in the game where the crowd lulled. And I know it's a big game, and I know it's a game we all get up for, Manchester United at home, because of the rivalry which started in the 90s and is now reignited with Newcastle being a better team than Manchester these days. But the atmosphere was great, and I think me and Dad did get a reaction.
Yeah, and you can look at it in a couple of ways. I did find his comments a little strangely timed and going about it a strange way, but at the same time, very clear that there was a positive energy in the ground. But also, I think late there's something about later kickoffs at St James's Park under the lights.
Yeah.
There's something about the energy that comes out of that ground and bounces around everyone. Whether it's because everybody's been 2 or 3 hours longer in the Strawberry or the Garter or what have you, whatever reason it is, there's certainly something about the energy at St James's. Once you get a late kick-off and it's under lights and it has that, particularly on a colder, crisper day like it looked like yesterday, it just seems to bring the best out of everybody at St James's.
Yeah, I think, the atmosphere was really good last night, Stu, and I think, the talk of bringing drums in and stuff like that, you don't need it at Newcastle. You know what I mean? I think it's just certain games bring in certain circumstances bring certain atmospheres, and I think last night was proof of that. That was Newcastle were well up for it. Nighttime games do have a strange effect on the crowd as well. But I mean, most people I think were out from about, certainly everyone was out from 4. I mean, the bars were chocker by 4 o'clock, which is when I went out yesterday. But everyone was well served by the time they got into the ground, put it that way, and it does help the atmosphere, I think.
Warms the cockles, as they say, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it does as well. There was a lot. Everything just seems to click into place, but it's not by chance; it's by planning. And there's a tweet I put out just as the game started, and all our players had short sleeves on. Man United players, some were wearing gloves. They all had long sleeves on. And there was only 3 of our players that had the undercover of the short sleeve, and that was the 2 Brazilians, so that's okay. And Lewis Miley, because he had a note from his mum, so he had to wear it. So everyone else, and to me it was just right. It took me back to when we were kids and playing football in the cold. If you want to get warm, run about, and they certainly did. And it was, you imagine thinking they've had to get the bus up and they've travelled through the northwest, up through the lakes and everything, seen how cold it looks. They wouldn't have been fancying it. And then they get out on the pitch and there's Newcastle just with the short sleeves on. They must be thinking these lads are well up for this. So psychologically that helped, but the crowd sounded fantastic. It really did. And when the players needed them, they were there. And then when we as fans needed the players, they were certainly there. And that's the synergy Mitch is referring to.
Yeah, fantastic. Talk about Gordon being injured. I've not seen that at all, but yeah, there is concern. Paul Emery. I mean, this is how we find out these days. Sometimes he says Gordon's got an amber warning on fantasy football. Michael says you could see Gordon limping. Barry Hogan mentions it as well in the chat. And Roger Cook says, yeah, I saw him rubbing his hip a few times. I've not heard anything from Eddie Howe on that. Did he mention it last night? Did either of you hear that?
I haven't heard anything. He certainly was hobbling a little bit. I mean, good God, he's probably done a half marathon in the last 3 games.
Yeah,
they're not surprised he's bloody sore. And he took a couple of kicks yesterday as well.
Yeah, he did.
So this hopefully it's just sort of impact injuries. It's bruises and it's stuff that he can be worked out for him. And hopefully he'll not add to the growing injury list. But it's interesting to say, in the first place, people are looking at fantasy football. This is how it started in the NFL. Fantasy football over there is inherently tied in with some of the betting lines in Vegas, and that's why their injury reporting is so good and why people are going mad at the Bengals at the minute about Joe Burrow, the quarterback, having an injury that they failed to notify everybody of, and now he's out for the rest of the season. And he's played a couple of games with this dodgy hand, and there's hell on about it. But it's all because people in Vegas are upset about it, and that's maybe the way that fantasy football in the UK will go as well.
Well, thanks, Paul, because it reminded us to take Nick Pope out my fantasy team, which I've just done now. I've had to put Edison back in. But yeah, I mean, God, if we lose Anthony Gordon as well, I mean, that'll be a nightmare, Stu.
Yeah, well, on the back of me saying on Geordie's Here Wednesday that I'd love to hear Eric Ten Hag whinging at the end of the game. and it played out exactly like that. I got my crystal ball out again at half time yesterday, and I sent WhatsApp to Mitch and not me, heated crystal ball. To Mitch and Steve Hasty saying, I think Gordon's playing beneath himself, like he was holding back as if he was concerned. Maybe he's just psychologically concerned of an injury, but his mere presence on the pitch is enough to deter their right back thinking they could go forward. So at the end of the tweet, at the end of the WhatsApp, Mitch, if you can get it on your phone, I actually said, Q, he will score the first goal now. And then 10 minutes later, he did. So if I can just get this 3-1 prediction right, I can retire because everything else seems to be working. No, but he was hobbling off, and I'm sure I heard something or read something, but bear in mind, I did have a considerable alcohol intake last night. So I think it was referenced in the Eddie Howe's post-match press conference. And he says, well, it's too early to find out or something like that. We'll see. But we've got, an extra day because the game's on Thursday. And Everton away, if he's going to be up for one game, it's definitely going to be that one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm sure if he can play even with crutches, he'll be on that pitch if it's physically possible.
Yeah. He doesn't know. He won't want to miss that. Paul Emery says Gordon said after the game to the TNT reporter he was limping. So I think this is where it has come from. Okay, well we'll watch that with interest. Hopefully, as Mitch says, it'll just be a bit of bruising, and that will be that will be okay. Paul and Mag watching from the hospital after the birth of my son Kieran yesterday. 100% win record for the little Mag. Congratulations, Paul and Mag. Great news. Another black and whiter born, which is fantastic. I do just want to come back to that point that was put up by Roger. The pitiful attempts at the Shearer song were very short-lived. They're given up with a United chance, knowing the tune ruins it. I mean, will they ever grow up, Mitch, Manchester United fans, and will they ever stop singing that blasted Shearer song? It's a waste of time. It's a different era. It's pointless, really, Mitch. You're on mute, Mitch. You're on mute.
It is. It's part of their psyche at the moment. I think they're enjoying a damn good whinge, and they're clinging on to past glories. They know they're on their way out. They know they're on their way down. And anybody with two eyes and half a brain could see what was going on that pitch yesterday in terms of their rotated team versus ours, and who wanted it more, who played better. As I say, the most comprehensive 1-0 you'll ever see. There's no way they could have complained if we'd beat them 3 or 4. And so the fans have got to try and cling on to whatever they can. The Shearer thing's almost laughable. They then tell we spend 2.5, 3 hours on social media telling me that we're not their rivals, and then they spend half the game singing about Alan Shearer. Well, make your mind up, lads. Make your mind up. But it, like I said, just shows where they're at the minute in terms of mentality and ability.
Yeah, Stu, it's becoming boring now, that song.
I think it's funny. I do. It just shows, but they're not bothered that he didn't sign for them. But 20-odd years later, they're still thinking about it. But the second part of the song referencing us being a bad football team, I think that's what's calmed them down a bit now. I think they've realised that it was a sliding doors moment, I think, last night, that they've realised that we are going one direction and they're definitely going the other. And in the words of Yaz and the plastic population, the only way is up for us. And they are certainly not. They'll be lucky to get into Europe with the way they're playing at the moment. And when you hear managers coming up with excuses and trying to justify bad performances, to me, that's a bad mindset. It's a bad mentality. You've got to put your hands up and say we weren't good enough. Like the Chelsea manager did last week. Credit to him. He says that we weren't good enough. We couldn't match them. But then just to say we've had to play. We've had a couple of injuries, and we're in Europe, and it sounds weak. And what you need to do, if you're in any sort of team, you need to look for your leader to be inspirational and someone you can admire and want to follow. And when you've got someone who's meant to be in charge leading you into a battle and he's making excuses every game, it doesn't bode well for them. And long way to continue.
Halfway through the show, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract, free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks again to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you'd like to order some, then give them a call on 01768 210 102. Go to the website, mrvickies.co.uk, or drop them an email, info@mrvickies.co.uk. A big thanks to United Group Travel. They're a family firm based in Morpeth with pickups throughout the Northeast. No strangers on our tours, just people you haven't met yet. They've got a presence on Facebook and a website, unitedgrouptravel.com. If you want to make a booking, give them a call on 01670 632 460 or mobiles 0791 666 4174 0795 71 41654. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. Let us look after you in your time of need. They're based on Old Durham Road in Gateshead, and you can contact them at their website, darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk, or give them a call, 0191 478 2730. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And a big thanks to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. If you want to help the channel, hit the thumb up to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and share to your other social media. You can also pay a one-off fee of £25 to get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. Go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and click membership, or put your smartphone over this QR code. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make some donations virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. We're also a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcast providers. Just search NUFC Matters. I'm also part of the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show. You can listen to that Monday to Friday, 7 till 9 at the tooneuk.com. We've also got an event coming up next year. It's in January the 19th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. It's an evening with Nobby Solano. Tickets are available on Voucher for £20. Don't forget, Supermac and Gibbo do every pre-match at Louis Liquor Store. It's free entry, children welcome, and there is great food by Fed's Fried Chicken. They're usually on pre-match and sometimes post-match at Louis Liquor Store. Okay, welcome back to NUFC Matters. The morning after the night before, Newcastle United beating Manchester United by 1-0. Couple of questions coming in. We do try to use the chat and get your views across. Barry says, with the current injury list, guys, where would you be targeting transfers-wise in January? I think we'll need a full team, Barry. With so many people out, where do you start? Which is the point you're trying to make. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how to answer that question, and I don't think Eddie Howe does at the moment. Every time he gets asked it in the press conference, he says, well, we'll assess the situation in January.
Yeah, still for me, another striking option would be vital for me. I think in January, I think we've seen firsthand how thin we are. Again, Isaac's getting fitter and stronger, but he was still knackered in the last 10 minutes again last night. And again, he's another one who's done a hell of a lot of work, so it's not surprising. So yeah, striker for me still, and then I think it's probably going to depend on who comes back, sort of more in the tail end or towards the tail end of the year. Who comes back this month fit, and how close they are Eddie Howe fit to drop back into the mix again, you know. So, but for me, striker's still the thing, the one area that I think we really do need to have another body in.
Yeah, I think we do need to get another striker in. I'm not sure whether we'll get him in January, but you never know. But what's your thoughts, Stu?
It's tricky, isn't it? Because if you are to get a striker, who's going to come knowing that there will be number 2 or 3 at best? You know, so you've got someone at the end of the career or someone at the start of the career. And the way Newcastle are going to be someone at the start of the career so they can learn and then come into the team. But Isaac's at an age where, as long as he continues to apply himself in the right way, he's going to be our leading striker for a long time. The area that I would like to see us improve, if they can in January, would be the right wing side. And that's not a criticism of Miggy, but I just think it's an area we could upgrade on. It is frustrating. You can't knock his workload, his commitment, etc. But it comes frustrating when you know he's going to cut in every single time. And well, I'm just speaking personally. You know, I scream at the TV, hit the byline for once, man. You know, and probably a bit more vociferous than that, and a few more expletives as well. But you know, it beggars belief that someone's getting paid that amount of money. You think you'd want to improve yourself and learn to kick with the other foot, go both ways, as Joe Linton does when he's on the left, as Willock does, as Gordon does. And if we had that on the right, then I think we really could climb the league even further than the Champions League, on the verge of the Champions League now. And I just seen a comment there about Livramento. He could actually put Trippier out of the England team, couldn't he, if they're looking for a left back? Because if he keeps playing left back that way, he's going to be very hard not to put into the squad, and that's where Trippier plays for England at the moment. And if you looked at the Man United, well, seeing that Luke Shaw played centre half, but if I was the England manager, well, you wouldn't have qualified as an England manager. I would have made sure of that. But if I was an England manager, I would be looking at Livramento, to me, better than Luke Shaw, if that's your options. So it's a tricky one. But for me, to the original question, Steve, was if we did upgrade, I'd want an upgrade on the right wing position. But I fully understand that we need cover for the forward position as well.
Big shout out to Kevin Myers, who's in Thailand. He says, can't wait for the second half of the season. We should finish really well. Teams like Liverpool and Arsenal haven't had many injuries yet. How are the lads? Never seen so many shirts yet. They're becoming a big club, a bigger club now. The Giant is really waking up, Kevin. I think that's the big thing. A couple of other questions as well, and points. Paul says, a forward who can go out wide and up top for me. But yeah, we got this one yesterday, and I said I would take him on loan. I would take Lukaku on loan at the end of till the end of the season. I don't think I would sign him permanently, but if that was an option, I wouldn't say no. I know I'm probably in a minority with that, but Mitch, Lukaku.
But it fits the model that Stu's just talking about. Who's going to come, and how are they going to come, knowing effectively their second or third choice? And you're either going to get somebody young or somebody who is getting towards the end of their career, but wants to put a shift in at the top flight for the last hurrah. And he's bounced around between Chelsea and Serie A over the last few years. If he was hungry enough and the mentality was right, I don't see why not, because it fits that model for me. My only question would be the mentality. I think that's the bit we'd have to work on.
Yeah, I mean, Lukaku's been there, done it, got the T-shirt in the Premier League. I would go like a short loan till the end of the season because of the injury crisis more than anything else. If we couldn't bring somebody in who was going to be permanent, Stu, I don't think it's a bad shout, Lukaku. I've got to be perfectly honest.
And not for me, to be honest. It depends. He'll command a high wage to start with, and again, with his attitude, is he going to really give his all? No, it's just for a short period of time. It could do him good being in the spotlight with the Euros coming up. But then if he's thinking, I'm not even going to get starting once everyone's fit, it might not appeal to him that much either. So hopefully there's other options. I think Lukaku, he seems to be, from the outside, a bit of a loner. He doesn't seem to fit in with the squads that much, and that's one thing that we've got in abundance is the squad strength and the
Yeah.
camaraderie. And I think it's not just about the package of a footballer, it's the personality as well. So for me, I'd be less inclined to say sign Lukaku unless Isak was injured and then he knew he was going to get the run of games.
The way our luck's going with injury, you know, you don't want to tempt fate, but God, it's the last thing we need. In poster, another new sponsor. Does anyone know the value of the deal, the club? The answer is no. I would say on that. Craig says, I'd wait on a forward. Gordon can fill in when Barnes is back. I want a left-footed forward, says Craig. Wouldn't touch Lukaku. He's toxic. A couple of other questions were put in early doors. Yeah, this was a good one from Ray. Good morning, Ray. If all of our injured players were back, who would get straight back in the team, if any? Wow. I mean,
Only Poppin for me.
Alan White says, how good was Miley? What do you think should happen with him when everyone's fit? I mean, two similar questions, really. Yeah, I mean, you're saying Botman, but I mean, Lewis Miley's he's earned his place in that team. I think it's going to be so difficult to shift him. I mean, Longstaff, Anderson could classify himself as another one who was unlucky. He was there and thereabouts. He was in before Miley. It's not like work where you're last one in, first one out. It's such a difficult but a great problem to have, Mitch, isn't it, for Eddie Howe when eventually we do get these players back. Yeah, on mute again, Mitch.
One of the upsides of the injury crisis, if there is an upside to it, is the fact he's had no choice but to chuck a bit of faith into a few people. And so, you know, and Miley's really shown that he has the class and he has the quality and he has the ability and he doesn't look out of place. And so, you know, perhaps he's got his chance sooner than he would have otherwise. But again, it shows everybody in the club that if you get your opportunity and you grasp it with both hands, Eddie's going to back you. And I think Stu's right. I think the only one who walks straight back into a team is Botman, really. But other than after that, we've got the luxury of not having to rush someone now. You know, you read an interview with Bruno this week where he confessed about playing through pain with that ankle sprain. We saw it with our own eyes. We knew what was going on. There'd be less pressure to do that with a player now because we've got an abundance of talent that we all have faith in, and that's fantastic. You know, that's only ever going to benefit the squad and the team as a whole. And I still remain superbly impressed by the way Miley stepped up to the plate. You know, and you forget how tall he is, and if he bulks out the way Anderson did over a close season, we've got a potential to have a box-to-box midfielder for the next 10 years. It's crazy, but brilliant.
Yeah, big decisions to make if we ever get out of this injury crisis, Stu, isn't it, really?
Yeah, but I still think that Botman is the only one on that injury list that commands a first-team place, where he is one of the best centre-halves in the league, and I'd put him in the top three in the whole league. So once he's fully fit and up to speed, then absolutely Botman. Regarding Miley, we have to be careful of burning him out as well and giving him too much too soon. But at the moment, he's playing with the zest and the verve of a teenager, and he's took to it like a duck to water, hasn't he? And he doesn't look out of place. But we'll have to be careful. I'm sure if we had more options in midfield, he probably would have been rotated had his minutes managed more. But at the moment, he's thriving on the challenge, and long may it continue. But I think if we get through till January, it's only 1 month now, do we really need to buy someone if we've got maybe 4 or 5 coming back in? You know, and a lot of them, you've got Barnes who could play on the left, and you can put Gordon on the right, and Gordon's going to need a rest sooner rather than later as well. because he is high impact. You know, he plays with such pace, and every game he's getting clobbered. And remember, he hasn't really had a rest because he played through the summer, and that's probably one of the main reasons why he's hit the ground running this season as well. So at some stage he may burn out, so he will be due a rest, and that will coincide hopefully with Barnes coming back in and give him a cup game or two, and allow Gordon to get the rest he needs. But the rest of them, you start thinking about Trippier, and you think, like, could he be rested? You could put Livramento right back and bring Hall in at left back. But none of them want to be dropped because that's how they see it. They don't see him being rotated. They see he's being dropped. And see that there when they said Mitrovic is a lone striker. I watched him play on Friday night. I was in Riyadh, and I went to the Riyadh derby, which is Al Hilal versus Al Nassr. And for all those who say there was 600 watching and stuff like that, the crowd was over 50,000, and the atmosphere was really, really good. I'll send you some videos, Steve, of it. The crowd were great. The displays that they did, you know, there was some things that war flags would be. Oh, I could nick that. And Mitrovic, he was like he was for Newcastle. To be fair, he was anonymous for most of the game, but he still scored 2 goals in injury time. I thought he would have been subbed off before that, but there's no way he could play with the intensity that we do as a team. And I think he's happy there in these mega bucks. And Neves, he looked comfortable there, if that's going to get mentioned. And I spoke to 2 people high up because I was in the VIP bit as a guest. And one says, oh, he's coming to sign for Newcastle. The other one says he's not going anywhere. And I don't think he is. He looks comfortable there. The game's played at a pace that suits him, where he can get in the ball, put his foot on it, and then have a look round and start playing the passes, and he can go past the players. But I think the step up from that league, to me, the game, the talent on the pitch was probably top end of the championship, and that's the standard of that Saudi league. But you've got to think that's only in 2 or 3 years they've come to that level. What level could they get to in the next 5 to 10 years? But on that game, there was one player that stood out and quite literally was head and shoulders above the rest, and that was Koulibaly, the centre-half of Napoli. And he could do a job for us to the rest of the season. But they all looked happy there at the end of the game. They went to Crouch and got the kids on the pitch and stuff like that, because it was a good old thrashing of Ronaldo's team. And watching him with his histrionics, it made us smile like he's never ever come to Newcastle. Because the way he was in the referee's face, he was in the linesman's face. He started like applauding quite aggressively into the centre half who had tackled him, you know, to try and get a reaction, and he just sulked. But to be fair to him, he did score a cracking goal that was ruled in for offside. But Mitrovic, no, sorry, that was a long way to say not for Mitrovic.
Yeah, I understand. We didn't know the in-post thing. That was a question we had before. Michael West said, if under Keegan they were known as the entertainers, what are they under King Howe? Shez suggested the achievers, Mitch. Is that a good suggestion? We've got to achieve first. We've got to achieve first.
Say, let's put something in the cabinet first, right?
Yeah, and I mean, look, the knocking records down left, right, and centre. I mentioned a couple at the start there, just with Manchester United, but different runs, different records being broken. Mitch, it's consistency, I think, is what this team has that perhaps the entertainers didn't have. And
I'm not saying more a solidity as well. Because really, yesterday at 1-0, there was maybe only 3 or 4 minutes of that 90 where we didn't look totally in control of the game. You know, under Keegan, we might have leaked something there, but I was reasonably calm throughout the entire game. That we've got this. It's that solidity that's there. That gives that foundation for the players to go and earn the right to just display their talent further up the pitch. Is phenomenal, and what a great platform to build from. Not going out expecting to win 5-4, because I think we'd all take a season of 1-0 wins like that. if at the end of it we're going beaten and we're sticking stuff in the trophy cabinet, you know. So yeah, it's a very different way of entertaining.
Yeah, the battering teams into submission, aren't they?
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing, and it's like you can see that it's very rare that the opposition gets chances against us. I think it was, you said, one shot last night, Steve, on target.
One shot
and
on target. Yeah.
Arsenal had the same as well, didn't it? So it's getting into their heads as well. You're not going to get many chances against us, to the point where they just give up. You know, what's the point? Because if I do manage to get past him, then that one is running back to cover him, and you know, and that's quite right. They are grafters, but they're grafting with talent, and they've all bought into the same thing of, we will achieve this together, and there is no egos in that squad. You can see they're all friendly with each other. You see that on the clips that the club share when they come off the pitch and they're going into the changing room. You know, everyone, including the backroom staff, they are stand as one. They are genuinely united, and that's what, you can't buy that. That has to be forged. That has to be earned. And to me, I don't think there's another team in the league that has that, and that will only stand us in good stead and continue to take us on. And that's why signing new players will be difficult, because they have to fit in with that. We can't be buying egos, no matter how talented they are.
Yeah, Kevin Mayer says, who do you think will be our first big value player to be sold? I mean, it's a difficult one at the moment. I mean, but Mitch mentioned, has said this on more than one occasion, and yeah, there's no room for sentiment. You know, we will have to sell players at some point, Mitch.
Yeah, absolutely. And the right money will help balance FFP and enable us to sign more. Squads always evolve and grow and change, and nothing lasts forever. And I'm sure, you know, we've got the people in place to have the confidence that if they decide to accept a bid for someone, what they've got lined up to come will enable the betterment of the team and the betterment of the club. So we just have to trust to that process a little bit, and change the way we think about the game. Because we're talking about moving players on, but not in the way that we did in the 80s, when it was to basically prevent the directors having to put their hands in the pockets. You know, it was to keep the club ticking, so the directors didn't have to fork out and get their bonuses at the end of the year and what have you. Well, this is a very different way of doing it, and it's part of the modern game. That squads change and players move, and sometimes it'll feel like the end of the world, but the club will still be there and will hopefully still be going forward, you know. Another thought as well in the game at the weekend, is this another week where the media are going to tell us that our opposition was playing below par, and that was an undercooked performance by our opposition. There's still one common denominator. They all seem to do it against Newcastle United. It's you know, it's frustrating, really frustrating. But perhaps now we'll start to get some of the credit we're due. Yeah,
we've got to accept we're going to sell players at some point. But the financial fair play, that's part of it. If you sell a player, you know, it obviously helps. A homegrown player, you know, or a player that you brought in, it's gonna help your financial fair play. But commercial revenue as well helps, doesn't it? And we're certainly cooking on gas with that, Stu, the commercial revenue side.
And it'll continue to grow as well. The good thing is, yes, ultimately, if we're going to get better players in, and that's what we have to do, if we're going to advance, we have to get players better than what we've got. And then again, with the right mentality and personality and everything else. So it really is a small pot. So there's no doubt they'll be buying players in the summer, especially. Maybe get one or two in the January, but maybe just one. But the thing I love about watching this team, not just the team, the squad, they're aware that some people will have to make way for new players coming in, and they're all playing with this "not me" attitude. Not me. I don't want to leave. I want to play, and I'm going to do everything I can to play. But when we talk about the sentiment, it's the 100%ers, the people like the Chris Woods, the people like the Kieran Clarks that have been moved on. that's where you start looking, thinking, right, where can we boost this squad up? Because if you end up with a squad of 25 Bruno standards, then it's hard to keep them happy as well. So you do need people in the squad, like your Murphys, but then I've seen a report that he was linked with a move to, I think it was Forest for 25 million. Quite a strange report to someone who's injured, but at the same time, would you take 25 million for Murphy? Of course you would. And that's the sentiment, because that 25 gives you at least 100 million to spend with the amortization of the way the financial fair play works. So this is when you say, when both myself and Mitch have said repeatedly, there's no room for sentiment, but it's in safe hands. And that's what we've got. There's Eddie Howe made it clear in one of his press conferences that no player signed without his input. And Dan Ashworth obviously has an eye for the talent, the people that he's brought in show that. So we will go the right way. And when players do leave, they'll be leaving with a heavy heart, but it will be with our best wishes as well. And this is the sort of thing that we're going to have to get used to advance. But again, I think there's some blue chip players that you wouldn't want to even consider selling, and that's the spine of your team. And there's a song about it. You've got Botman at the back, and he's like an attack, and our Bruno in the middle. So that is the spine of this team, and that spine will be enough once you start adding to it for us to start breaking this trophy hoodoo and then adding to that as well. And it's brilliant to watch it.
Got time to squeeze one question in from Craig. He says, what's happening, do you think, with young Hall? I fancied we wouldn't use him as a left back and he'd be a midfielder. I thought we might have seen him on the right wing or brought on in a midfield role. I mean, the last 3 games unchanged, and rightly so. The team have deserved, to have that, places. And as long as they're not physically or mentally fatigued, then Eddie Howe's done the right thing, and the results have proved that. 4-1 win against Chelsea, 1-1 against PSG, 1-0 win against Manchester United. We know it'll be a changed team against Everton because we won't have the same goalkeeper in. But if Gordon is okay, might we see an unchanged team again? And Hall's on the bench, isn't he? He could come on at any time, Mitch.
He is, and it makes me wonder, because Eddie was at pains to say he's not necessarily a left back and he's versatile. What's Eddie doing with him in training? Is he setting him up for a role, or tweaking something so he can concentrate on that thing to become the best at whatever it is he's being lined up for, and not just chucked in and hope that it sort of works out at left back for him or what have you. It has the distinct feel of a player being managed in some way to me. Remains to be seen. But Howe's gone on about his versatility before and about his ability to play different roles. So maybe that's what's going on. It's difficult to say. Or has he come from Chelsea with some preset concepts and ideas that he needs to unlearn to fit into Howe's system? You got to remember, it was it 8 games before Bruno got a start after we signed him?
Yeah.
And that's very much Eddie's way, seems to be to ease a player in without putting undue pressure on them quickly. So, it just feels like he's being managed for some reason. A reason I don't know. But he's never let me down once he has put some minutes in. So, handy to have on the bench.
Some players take longer than others, I guess, Stu.
Yeah, definitely. Before I answer the question, I just want to thank everyone who's got out of the bed, probably hungover to watch us talk shite on a Sunday morning. So thank you for doing that. I know it must have been difficult because I'm sure there would have been a lot of celebrations last night. But regarding Hall, I was actually thinking about him this morning. Me and Mitch have had the benefit of 3 or 4 extra hours on the day, you see, so that's why we're looking at a bit more fresh. But regarding Hall, as I said, I was thinking about him this morning, and with Gordon injured, potentially, and then I was thinking, right, you could put him at left back, but then where would Livramento go? You want to minimise the amount of changes, and then you think, right, he played in midfield. He started in midfield. Well, he didn't start. He ended up playing in midfield against Manchester United in the Cup, and he looked comfortable there. So you could put him in there and put Joe Linton on the left. So you've only changed 2 positions. However, that then leaves Bruno with 2 young'uns either side of him, with Miley and Hall. So he'll get his chance. If he's good enough, he'll get in. And once he's in, it's his job to keep a hold of the shirt, just like Livramento did, just like Byrne did before him. And that's the challenge of top flight football at the pinnacle of it, and that's where we are now. We're heading for the very, very top, and he'll get his minutes. There's no doubt about that. And what he's got to do is take the opportunity when he gets it, and I'm sure he will.
David Knight, we'll finish with this. He says, so proud of this team. I can finally go to the pub and be tuned up without getting embarrassed like the last 15 years. And that's where I'm going, off to the pub. Stu, Mitch, everybody in the chat, all the admins, thanks very much. Back 6 o'clock tomorrow with the fans forum. See you then. Take care, guys.
Cheers, everyone.